Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. In today's episode, we're going to talk to a person that has been teaching us about the revelation through his stories, through all this history that's within it, all the magic that you can find. So I'm really pleased to see and welcome a brother, friend, Rick Warren, who is a veteran, a retired repairman, a longtime student of the Urantia Book, and the author of a remarkable series of novels that bring the fifth epical revelation to life through story. Rather than writing theology, Rick writes people, from Adam and Eve to Midwayers, from Melchizedek to Mansion Worlds. His novels invite readers to experience the revelation through the lives of unforgettable characters. Together we'll explore how storytelling can take faith into new realms, it can awaken it, it can reveal cosmic purpose, and it can help us see our own lives as part of a much greater adventure. So welcome to this podcast, Rick. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thanks, Santiago. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So we're going to dive into our first part into how you became interested and how you started writing all these stories. So from an ordinary life to cosmic purpose, every extraordinary journey begins with an ordinary person. Rick Warren wasn't trained as a theologian or a philosopher. He was a repairman, a veteran, and a husband whose encounter with the Urantia Book transformed the way he understood life. In this first segment, we'll explore how revelation can awaken creativity, purpose, and a calling at any stage of life. So tell us, Rick, how was your story? I mean, it's always interesting to hear the different ways that readers found the book, or like we would like to say, the book found you. So tell us a little bit about this story and how that changed your life.
Well, I was living out on the West Coast in a little church community in the hills. There were about 100 of us, and a woman came to visit this community and we fell in love. And she was quite the activist and interested in everything that was going on at that time. And there was this community not far from where I was living called the Blue Algae Community. And that was the blue algae was a thing back in the 80s when I found the book. And she says, I want to go visit them. Let's go down there. And so we went to this little town in the down by San Francisco, and rented an apartment. We subletted an apartment. And the guy was leaving for 2 weeks, and he was just going to let us live there until we found our own place. And so all his furniture and all his books were there. And on his shelf was this big blue book.
Okay.
And I pulled it down, and I opened it to the index, and I just right there, Santiago, I had a religious experience. I said, this is what I've been looking for. And I was thumbing through the pages, and I just knew that I had found something really special. And from that day on, I've read the Urantia Book and done something with it just about every day for the last 40 years. That was in 1986, so 40 years last month.
Well, that's the whole lifetime. So, I mean, you're telling us that you were living in a church community. So can you describe us? I mean, obviously it was a religious community. So can you tell us a little bit more of what were your community like and how that differed from what you found in the Urantia Book? Or did you find, can you tell us that experience?
Yeah, this was Harbin Hot Springs. It was actually a hot springs hotel where people could come up and visit, but they also had a community there of a lot of ex-hippies and a lot of wandering souls like me. And it was really an international community with
So
lots.
it wasn't religious. It was more of a hippie social community,
Well, it was founded and it was called the Church of Heart Consciousness.
Okay.
There was a guy from back east who came out and bought the hot springs. It was in terrible condition, and he built it up using us to help him, and it's quite successful, and it's still a going enterprise. And I really loved it there. That was probably heaven on earth to me, living in that little community with a constant flow of international guests and people from all sorts of walks of life.
That's interesting. So I understand. So it was in this community that you found this person and that took you, and you eventually found the Urantia book. So when you started reading it, and you started studying it, what was that really appealed to you, or what caught your eye? I mean, apart from in that first reaction that you had.
Well, I right away after I got the book, a friend bought me a copy for my birthday, and I said, "Well, I'm going to read this over the next year." I made myself a promise, so that meant I was going to have to read, you
A lot.
know, oh yeah, about,
It took me
yeah,
4 years the first pass, to really sit
really,
down and dig it. I mean, understand everything. I mean, it was sometimes that had long pauses to really reflect and then continue. But yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. So yeah, tell us.
yeah, I didn't understand it all, but I pushed on through in 1 year, and then I read it
Okay.
again, and then I read it again, and each time I read, well, I picked up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess the most outstanding feature of the book that it was so, what's the word? It wasn't pushy or
Yeah.
trying to make me believe like, maybe a modern religion would, or join anything. It was just plain facts about the entire universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just every page just blew me away. I never doubted it for 1 minute. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that also caught me. It's the logic behind it. I mean, it's really very high concepts, and like you said, sometimes you really can't understand at the first pass, and then it starts to make sense as the years pass. But trying to understand things, and that was what did it to me. Many of the things that weren't really answered by previous religions, that maybe they had these holes, these loops, and suddenly I get some answers, very clear answers, and that's what really got to me. How logical the explanations to many of the questions that I had, and of course many others that were brought up. But that was really I can relate. So thanks for sharing that experience. And how did it get you? I mean, we're gonna dive in deeper into that. So in the end, how did that form you? I mean, and you're telling us the story. You found the book. How long did you stay in that community work? Because you have an interesting life. You're a veteran. You were a repairman. So can you tell us more about that part of you?
well, after I read part four and the story of Jesus, and I saw how important family was to him,
Mm-hmm.
and my family wasn't in that greatest shape. I had sort of abandoned them and went out to the West Coast. I really, my father was an agnostic, and my mother was a Christian woman, but I was just a confused soul. So
Okay.
um, after I found the book, I said I contacted the foundation and started
Okay.
making contact with other people. And after I came back to Texas, where I am now, and I have been for the last 30 years, um, I wanted to start a study group. I realized that the most important thing I could do was look at this book with the help of other people, because some of the concepts are so far out there. They just beg to have you study with other people. That's why
Yeah.
there's so
Yeah.
many study groups around today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I so
Totally.
I so I had a study group. Back then we didn't have the internet, so we came to my home, and 2 weeks, every 2 weeks for 2 hours, these people would come over. There were 8 or 10 of us, and sometimes there were even 20 of us. But
Okay.
but we went through the whole book in 7 years, and
In
and
7 years. Okay.
mm,
And the entire book, I mean, you went I mean, and some topics are really complicated, but good for you. I'm
Yeah.
glad. So
Yeah.
we're gonna close this introduction, this introductory segment, and we're gonna follow with some of your work. So stick around. So why do stories move us in ways that facts often can't? Jesus taught through parables because stories bypass the intellect and speak directly to the soul. Rick has followed that same path, transforming the cosmology of the Urantia Book into compelling novels that allow readers to experience the fifth epical revelation through human lives, relationships, and adventure. So tell us, Rick, and I'm a big fan of stories, and in your work in particular, we're gonna talk about it in a minute. But I always believe that myth and stories are the bridge to where we communicate. I mean, in the dawn of time of civilization, you have the campfires, and you have people telling stories, and that's how myth and all these legends got passed down. And I also believe that these are very basic foundations for, especially for you know children before they come of age, before they hit the 13, 14, and start to find themselves. That these stories of heroes sets their values, their ideals, their longings, the understanding of good versus evil, what it is to be a hero. So it's really interesting to bring this to life, and so talk to us a little bit of why you started, or what you found in the Urantia Book in writing these novels, and what's your opinion and what's your take on using, like we were saying, this tool, like Jesus did in parables, and to bring this information in this way.
Mhm. Yeah, the Urantia book has the incredible history of the planet, and there's so many stories in that history, beginning with the planetary prince, the rebellion, Adam and Eve, Melchizedek, and now the Jesus, and now the fifth epical revelation. I just long for the world to find this book and read it. But Santiago, maybe 1% of the people on the planet will ever read a 2,000-page book.
Yeah, yeah,
So
right.
I thought, why not get the stories out and put them in novel form? So in 2016, I started writing a book about two people who died and went to heaven, as it's described in the Urantia book. And I came up with this book.
Okay, perfect. The
Is it
Resurrection
Doctrine?
Hall.
Yeah, Resurrection Hall. And these two people, um, they land and get their brand new bodies. They they go on vacation for 10 days and they explore Mansion World number one, and they ride on the big birds that are up there. They take classes, they meet people from other planets, and then they move on to Mansion World number two and three and four and five and six and seven.
Hmm.
And it's about a 250-page book. Um, just a standard novel size, 2 or 3 day read, and that was my first one.
So in just to go a little bit deeper, I really like what you said, and a lot of what people's have, or we have the traditional concept of what hell is. I mean, hell and heaven. This polarity of where you're going and what's happening in the afterlife. And here, what's interesting is you're giving another picture of somewhere that's not just going and playing a harp and being on a cloud. It's
Mhm.
I mean, you're talking about vacation. So
Yeah,
these dynamics, and that's something that we do not realize. We're constructing a material world where we have these different roles and different times, and it's the same thing when we progress in our ascent to heaven, and these mansion worlds that you talk about, where you have different times of the day, different times of activities. And it's really interesting, that it's not there's more to the afterlife. That's the point
yes.
than we can see or we can understand in the traditional sense, right?
Yeah, my characters in the book Resurrection Hall, they get an assignment. They're going to become teachers of
Okay,
a new set of people who are coming to Mansion World number one from Urantia.
okay.
There's gonna be a dispensational resurrection soon, and they're gonna have to greet these people and teach them about most of them are not gonna know anything about the Urantia book, and they're not gonna know anything about, how the universe is set up or anything that we learned in here on Urantia from the Urantia book.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
and that's interesting. So it's not that you just die and suddenly everything is resolved and you're perfect. You still have a an ascension career where you still are learning, you're still evolving, and it's really for in my opinion, it's really rewarding to see that you know, life continues. It's just in a different matter, and it's in a different state, and that even the relationships that which is really important to a lot of people. Of course, it is to me as well. That they keep on going. You know that you're talking about two people that resurrect together. So I mean, there is continuum in these relationships throughout time, right?
yeah, yeah. And everybody wants to know about the next life. What is gonna be like when you die?
Yeah.
And they need that assurance, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. Um, it just so I've written 8 books now, and
Okay.
I took the stories of Adam and Eve, I took the stories of Melchizedek, and I don't in my books. I don't drift far from what it says in the Urantia book. I try to
Okay.
just like, for instance, Adam had to leave the first garden, and
Mm-hmm.
they tell us this. But they don't tell us what he said when he had to go to the people who were living in the garden, and explain to them why they had to leave and why they needed to go to this other place and what it was going to take and
Which
how
is
it had to be
the famous
picturesque.
banishment, and this is just to put a little bit into context to people that do not know the Urantia book. This is we're talking about the banishment of Adam and Eve from paradise
Yeah,
to what we know from the Bible, right?
yeah. They had
Okay.
made a mistake, and they were going to have to leave the first garden and go to a second garden, and so they don't tell us what Adam said, but I imagined, I expanded on him meeting with his people and talking to them and answering questions. And that's what most of my books are about. Just expanding on the details.
Yeah,
A lot of times they just give you a few details, but it implies so much that you
exactly.
can
What you
use
read
your
between
imagination. Yeah,
yeah, what you read between the lines is very important, and I'm glad that you have that creative mind and that creative drive because you know through creativity we can bring we kind of you know that's what you do with a character when you build it you try to analyze its psychology you know and this in this work and in studying these characters you know bringing that psychology what would have happened so this is very interesting and I like that contribution
right.
because it is very interesting, and one of the, I mean, now that you mentioned Adam and Eve, and it's one of the things that you know, in this in the first segment we were talking about, you know, how many of the things that weren't really resolved by traditional Catholicism to me were answered by the Urantia book, and this is one of them. You know, how do we reconcile? Because I knew that we came from you know, from apes, from the primates, you know, that was definite to me. But at the same time, how could I reconcile the story? I mean, there's a lot of things to reconcile. There's a, you know, with a original sin and all that. But how was that? You know, how could I reconcile that? And this is the interesting thing about the Urantia book that both things happen. You know, there was an evolutionary part of our material existence that started, and throughout many millions of years, you know, from organic matter came into being and then it got to a point where we now started another sequence you know a spiritual sequence you know and that being who we are and that's really fascinating to me you know and how Adam and Eve came to uplift that you know biological not biological but you know cosmic you know cosmic biology that we have you know and that really you know makes it even more more real to me, understanding that these two natures, both the material as well as the spiritual and can really coexist, right?
Yeah, and I just long for the people of the world to know the truth about Adam and Eve and all the other history that we have. It's so revealing, and I believe it would correct our path if people really realize what was going on in our planet. And the Urantia book explains that so well. We're
Yeah,
not cosmic orphans. We're here as children of God, and we're ha- we have so much help and so much ahead of us that it's so beautiful if everybody could know
yeah,
what's really going on. The world is lost; it doesn't know much
yeah,
about.
yeah.
It
It's
just
lost and confused. That's the
yeah.
problem,
The mythology is so strange, and yeah.
So, I mean, now talking a little bit more about your work, and we talked a little bit about two of your books. So, and the other books, and and beyond them, what are the stories? What particular, let's say, couple of characters or stories within the book do you think are do really touched you or really changed the way that you viewed, and think about that on what is it really that what characters and what stories really drove that change.
Where to start?
I know.
Van and Amadon have to be the greatest
Okay.
heroes,
Can
They
you
s
tell us a little bit about them?
well, Van stayed loyal when our planetary prince went into rebellion. He was on the staff of the planetary prince. There were 100
Correct.
of them, and about half of them went into rebellion with the prince, but not Van.
With Lucifer and all that story that people hear about, the war in heaven, and good versus evil. This is the war, and these are part of the army that, like we hear, the fallen angels and those that stay true. This is what we're talking about, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. There,
So interesting.
I wrote a book about the rebellion, and that's one of the most interesting parts of the Urantia book. It kind of clears up all that mystery about who was Lucifer and what about these fallen angels and what does all that mean, and they really clear that all up for us. But
Yeah, and Ben and Amadon, as you were saying, tell us a little bit, because I think they're very good heroes, and I feel that there's a lot of mythology that from different parts of the world that come from that story. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
mhm. Yeah, yeah. uh, all over the world. There are different mythology that's based in our distorted and misunderstood past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But another character that I really impressed me was David Zebedee.
Okay, yes, I
Um,
like this person too.
yeah, yeah, he was a real worker and get it done, and he didn't have to be told what to do. The world needs to know about him. They know about John and his brother James
Yeah,
Zebedee,
yeah,
the
the
sons
the
of
apostles.
thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, the apostles. Well, David Zebedee was their brother, and he ran a message service. And he was a lot smarter than most of the apostles. He knew what was going on, and he believed in Jesus, and he never questioned, and he was just a stalwart helper all the way.
And definitely, I think a role, and I think that's why he wasn't an apostle, because he needed to be in that role. And let me explain a little bit to and give context to our audience. We know from the account in the Urantia book that Jesus, throughout his ministry, had this messenger service that was headed by David Sevedy, and they would communicate, and that's why everything was known, very fast throughout different parts of the that time Judea and Palestine, in that area, because they had this messenger service that they would communicate. So and it's also very interesting because in the account when Jesus is resurrected, since he was a true believer, he was the one, one of the few that did not doubt that he was going to resurrect.
Yeah.
He was the first that, got those messengers out, and by, I think that evening, it was communicated throughout the world that Jesus had risen. So that's where everything comes from, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Love that story as well.
Yeah. But of course, the greatest person is Jesus. Um, he, the Urantia book has 700 pages of his story, where the Bible has only, just a small number of pages that were actually about him. But
It's
um,
if you add it, and we've done this. If you add the entire four gospels, it's around a year, a month's worth of stories. A life story.
yeah,
Comparing it to the 700 plus pages that you're talking about, right? And
yeah,
just a quick disclaimer: it does not deny or contradict. It just states a lot of the facts that were even ambiguous at the time, and that were really left to interpretation once you look at it in the
yeah,
Bible. This really sets the record straight. So it's not,
yeah.
against, nor we always
That's right.
believe in this. It's layering on top. So it's
Yes,
revelations.
expansion.
It's
Yes,
an expansion, exactly. It's like that shirt that you have there. You have the three concentric circles. Everything of truth is in the middle, and it's just
yeah,
an expansion of that truth. So just believe
yeah,
in that, expansion of what we're saying by somebody that was there and with a different account.
yeah,
And just in this version, the account is that it wasn't human. So
yeah.
please tell us a little bit more about this, Rick.
Well, um, I didn't really believe Jesus was. I didn't know what to think of Jesus before I found the Urantia book. I was in
Correct.
Vietnam, and I got sick. My fingers were swelling, and I went to the medic, and I said, "What do I need to do?" And he said, "Well, stay back in the rear for a few days and eat some good chow. You're probably just malnourished." And so I did, and I found a bunker that wasn't occupied, and in it was this book called the Good News Bible, and it was the
Okay.
New Testament in modern language.
Okay.
And that was my real introduction to Jesus. But when I finished, I thought, well, he was just maybe a wise man. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of stories that they added all those miracles. People tend
Yeah.
to write fantasies about their heroes, and I just thought it was kind of a cool story. But
Yeah,
then when I found,
nothing much more than any other great philosopher, religious man,
yes,
guru. Yeah,
exactly.
I understand. Yeah, yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
Just let me make this side note. That's where I put Jesus after I left Catholicism. I really said, okay. I mean, he's an ascended master. He's a wise guy, a wise person, but
Yeah,
not in the context and the dimension that the Urantia book
yeah,
tells us. So please continue.
yeah. The Urantia book expands on who Jesus was. I mean, the world would be astounded to know that he was just the incarnation of a celestial being named Michael, who
Yeah,
happens to be the creator of 10 million inhabited planets, and of which we're one. And Urantia had the good fortune to be the place where he enacted his seventh bestowal as Jesus. Apparently, these Michaels, there are a lot of Michael's sons like him, but they have to incarnate as their creatures so that they will have a sympathetic understanding of their
yeah.
creatures.
Which
And
is something
Jesus,
I love. That is something I love. The bestowals, the concept of the bestowals, that you become the creature that you create. So in a way,
yeah,
you understand them. You have the, like you said, that sympathy. That, I mean, you can even judge them, although they don't. But you can judge the experience. And that's really
mhm.
magical. Comparing it to some of the accounts of why Jesus came, and to be a blood sacrifice when he really came here. Number, I mean, among many other things, but really to attain this incarnation, as you said, in the human flesh.
The world would be so enlightened if they knew the full story of Jesus's life.
Yeah, Yeah,
I, uh,
definitely.
and it will one day.
Definitely. So,
Yeah.
and thanks for bringing all this information and these stories, because I think this is part of that retelling. And we always like to say it's a redefining, retelling, restating. Because the word religion isn't bad. If you put it like we were saying, in this infighting and everything, there's humans involved. There's the chance for imperfection, and no doubtedly it will come up. So always believe in looking for truth, beauty, and goodness, which is what we're going to talk about in the next segment, and how we can live within these realities and these fruits. Rick's lifelong passion has been exploring one of the most beautiful themes in the Urantia Book: the harmony of truth, beauty, and goodness. We'll discover why these three eternal values aren't simply ideas to admire. They're the qualities that shape character, guide our daily decisions, and prepare us for the endless adventures of eternity. So, Rick, this is what we were just talking about on these foundations, and how, as long as we have these foundations, civilization, individuals, everything works within harmony. So tell us a little bit more on what is truth, beauty, and goodness, and how it applies to our everyday living.
Well, let me start by giving a little background on truth, beauty, and goodness, Santiago.
Mm-hmm. Please.
Um, it appears that trio appears 84 times in the Urantia book.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled them all out and put them on a website, and I had to do some more study. Where uh, did the authors just pick out these three words and put them together?
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that they have a long history. That
Okay.
the Catholic Church adopted them back in the 15th century. There was a Catholic philosopher named Marsilio Ficino, and
Okay.
he is credited with bringing together those three words and adding
Okay.
them into Catholic theology. Of course, the Greeks studied truth and beauty and goodness, but they never pulled the three together like we have them
A
together.
triad, like you're saying, a triode, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And so after he Ficino put the three together, well, it appeared many times in Catholic theology. Those who read the Catholic doctrines and the literature associated with Catholicism will find truth, beauty, and goodness
Yeah.
quite a bit. But the Urantia Book authors, oh, by the way, their truth, beauty, and goodness have their own name. Philosophers
Mm-hmm.
have described them. They've given them the name transcendental
Okay.
because they transcend all the other virtues and values. And and
Okay.
and the Urantia Book says if you want to know God, this is His nature: truth,
Okay.
beauty, and goodness. Get to know
Yes.
these three, and they redefine truth. They say that truth cannot be defined in words. Truth is a living thing, and it can't be captured in creeds or anything like that. It says that God is truth. And they redefine beauty as
Mm-hmm.
cosmology. And that seems like a strange thing to call beauty cosmology, but more than once they will define uh, beauty as cosmology. And when you think about it, the
Yeah. To
cosmos
explain a little bit more.
is
Okay.
beautiful. I mean,
Yes.
billions and trillions of galaxies. Um,
But we were talking about the cosmic part of, and I was saying about the harmony that it is. And you were saying about the beauty in the cosmos, and I was talking about, the beauty that you find in a song that within time and space, time being the song itself, and space, the notes that are being played, how that harmony, paints and moves you without even noticing it, without really even seeing it, and that
Uh,
is, I think, the beauty in the cosmos, that perfectness, of balance and
yeah,
evolution, progression. And that's why you
yeah,
call a song, it's a progression. So yes, please, can you
yeah.
elaborate on that and explain a little bit more?
Uh, yeah, harmony uh, is very close to love. And the authors more than once say that the definition of love is truth, beauty, and goodness. They also
Exactly.
say they also say
It's
God is
equals.
love. God is love, God is
Yeah.
truth, God is beauty, God is goodness. He's the standard for these three things. And
Yeah.
he set the universe in motion by saying, "Be you perfect." Just three words caused the whole cosmos to begin to um, synthesize experience and potential. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where truth, beauty, and goodness come in because they're the standards by which the harmony of the universe comes into being. And and
Correct.
and it's just you know the fuel of the universe is love. That's a
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful thing.
It is. It might sound cliche, but it is. And the way I see it is, truth, beauty, and goodness. Truth plus beauty plus goodness equals love equals God. And that is another tryout where you have that.
Yeah.
God, love, and these three virtues. So how important they are. And come to think of it, anybody that really is looking for these, for truth. When you measure things, within truth, and you set the standards not only for the world around you, but yourself, mainly for yourself. You set your own standards, and by the way that you live your truth, and it's not, it is one's truth, because nowadays we have, different interpretations, or different people want to have their own version of truth. But truth is, like you said, immutable, or not immutable, but it cannot be captured. So it's
Yeah.
always evolving, like you say. It's
Mhm.
it's 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 changing. So believing in truth and beauty. I mean, once we it's not only in art, it's just doing, something artistic. If we live our lives artistically, if we talk artistically, if we communicate with love, with this, beauty behind our communication, then everything that we create and that we interact with is beautiful. And in goodness, when you go in life, and it doesn't have to be, again, the greatest thing, and you have to be, giving out everything in donations and charity, but helping somebody, giving a smile, sometimes just giving a smile
Right.
changes the dynamics and the energy. So, I mean, just these three very simple things that we just mentioned, how you're bringing the love of God into existence.
In several places, the authors mention, they say, um, all truth is relative to God.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that truth in one part of the universe may not be truth in another, but
This
you
is
will
interesting.
always you will always find that God is the standard of truth. And there, it's just a simple concept, but uh, it has to be respected. You know, people are really loose in their definition of what truth is.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you're on a trial, you're at a trial and you're a witness, you say, "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth."
Yeah.
But what we really should say, "I swear to tell the facts, the whole facts, and nothing but the facts," because truth is relative to each person and relative to God.
This is
So,
good. This is interesting concept about the place of relativity in truth. So yeah, explain a little
yeah,
bit more.
yeah, facts and truth are different things, and
Okay.
and the authors make that abundantly clear. And About goodness, um, everybody seems to know goodness when they see it. When
Hmm.
they see a parent helping a child or a young person helping an old person across the street, doing little things that they don't tell other people's about, you know,
Yeah,
giving charities to and uh, goodness is just something that it doesn't need new definition like beauty and truth.
yeah,
It's something that we practice and
yeah.
something that everybody has available if they want to, and it's a better motivation than seeking pursuing happiness, which I think is a kind of a silly and crazy idea. It would have been much better if Thomas Jefferson had said, you
That's
know,
interesting.
pursuit of wisdom or pursuit of goodness and anything but happiness. Happiness, I think, comes as a result of service.
This is interesting. I like this. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, and definitely. I mean, happiness, and this is something. When you have that as your goal, and life is not only happiness, and this is a fact.
Yeah.
There's trials and tribulations, and you go through difficult times, and that tempers you, and that really molds you, and helps you in this life, which is about experience. So, yes,
Mhm.
if you put the happiness as a goal, it's going to be hard. Happiness is a consequence of things that you do within what we're talking about, being
Mhm.
good and everything that derives into happiness, and you can be in bliss and you can be happy and everything. But I agree with you, the pursuit, because that is the way that is framed, the pursuit of happiness. And here you were talking about the pursuit of goodness, the pursuit of, something that is really attainable. Goodness, something that you can really give, and that molds your character in a positive way. So
Yeah.
interesting pointing that out, Rick. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Happiness, at best, is just a momentary feeling of joy.
Exactly.
And, being a child of God is something that brings the peace that um, that
Well, when you
God.
understand something, the peace that brings, right?
Yes, yes, especially things that are related to God and love.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
peace beyond all understanding. That's the phrase I was trying to think of.
Nice, yes, and I like that, and that's one of the things that I really, found a lot of peace in myself. Maybe not happiness, and because there's been a lot of tribulation in
Yeah,
my life, but I did find peace in that tribulation when I understood a little bit more about God, about the nature of God. Not that I switched my God, because that never changed. The God that was always in me, that divine within, has always been in me. It's only evolved in my understanding and my comprehension of my relationship with that fragment, and that fragment that is beyond myself in our brethren. And when we see that, when we recognize it, but that's really important, to really understand that these dynamics, and like I
yeah,
said, it's not substituting and saying, okay, this is a better God, because God is unique to you. He's and I like this, into putting into link it up to what you're saying about truth. Really, God, to each one of us, is different. We have a personal relationship with God, and as siblings, siblings have different relationships with their parents. We are the same. We have the same parents, but we have different relationships. So it's really important that we do not, like you said, encompass that in a religion, or encompass that in a creed, and we let it be mutable and evolving into our understanding, as we understand, rather, the nature of God.
yeah, yeah. And probably the greatest satisfaction that anyone can have is to know that they're not limited to this planet,
Yeah.
that there's a whole cosmos out there, and that we are all citizens of the universe. We aren't
Hmm.
just people who are stuck here on this crazy planet with all its troubles and its wars and hatreds and misunderstandings and lack of truth, beauty, and goodness, we can, anytime things seem to be overwhelming us, we can
Yeah.
just think about how we belong to the cosmos,
Hmm.
God's family, which stretches beyond imagination, beyond infinity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beyond the limitations of this material world, which is really important. And once you see you break those boundaries, I agree with you, and you see that the long way of eternity, and that's what eternity is. It's a I always teach about the Mayans and the way they view time and eternity, and this is just I see a cycle. Getting to God is the first part, and once we attain that, then we're gonna have another assignment, another eternal adventure, and that's the point about eternity. It's changing, it's evolving, it's becoming. But what you said about a potential to actual, which is very important, and maybe you can explain a little bit about what that concept is.
Yeah, I like what you said about we aren't limited by
Hmm.
what's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, anyways, Rick, it's been a really great conversation. It's really put a lot of perspective in everything. So, any closing remarks, anything that you want to get share with our audience before we leave the show?
Um, I just want to encourage everyone to think about what really is going on in life, um, and that they don't have to worry about this being the only existence they will ever have. There's
Yeah,
so much more out there. Just explore, and the Urantia book is a great place to start that. And you will find the answers to just about every question you can imagine.
definitely, definitely. And
Sorry.
questions that you didn't even think about, you didn't even know existed.
Yeah,
Be right.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry, my voice is going.
No worries, Rex. Well, thanks for sharing all this with us, your life story, which is very interesting. I love to hear these different stories on the backgrounds of people. Some are very Christian. Some fundamentally Christian. Some are Catholic, like myself. Some are Jewish. And in your case, came from a mixed situation that really showed you, presented God in a very sterile way, let's say, Jesus, where you didn't maybe grew up in I don't know, in their case, in a very traditional way, but through these rather social groups that you had, discovered this part, and that's what I want to get across. Anybody can read this. It's not one thing or the other, and it did not change who we are. It did not change who Rick was, but it rather enhanced his experience with life, with God, with everybody. So. Thanks for being here, Rick. Thanks you for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you like the content. And we'll be seeing you throughout the week and every week. And remember, this is the Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. Take care and carpe diem. On the Divine Within podcast, we share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.